What's going on, everybody? Just want to let you know our sponsors going forward for our future episodes. We are sponsored by Red Clover Coffee. So if you go to redclovercoffee.com and type in code IWP at checkout, you'll save 10% site-wide. Also, we are sponsored by Performance Supplements. So if you go over to performancesup with 2ps.com and type in code IWP at checkout, you'll save 15% site-wide. And our third sponsor is we are sponsored by Crunch Fitness up here in Northern California. Thank you, guys. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode here on Intel Within Podcast. I have the pleasure of doing another interview with one of my really good friends. His name is Hunter Blain. We were in the fitness industry together for a while, and then he dabbled into and started doing his own book series and becoming an author, Amazon's bestseller, Audible. So this is going to be a catch-up for myself as well. I haven't talked to Hunter in what seems like a few years. So thank you for coming on, Hunter. I appreciate it. We got this done in a few days. So how are you doing, sir?
Man, I'm pretty fantastic. That's
so
for sure.
Let's just get, so we met each other in the fitness industry. You worked for USP Labs, I believe the first time, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So those are some really fun days back in 2013 and a few years on. That's where I meet a lot of my friends, fitness industry, the gym, and then so what year did you start really kind of writing, and what got you into writing?
So I've always dabbled in writing and stuff, just doing short stories and whatnot, nothing crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I published my first book in 2019, actually.
Hey, keep it live, the dogs.
Can you keep them inside? My wife just came home, so the dogs are just freaking out and running up the stairs.
Super excited.
So anyway, yeah, so I published my first book in 2019. Took me a year to write the first one. And the story behind that actually is my best friend, John Cook, who I grew up with, had always liked my short stories and stuff. I would do ones on, aliens or serial killers or just kind of fun stuff like that. Nothing too serious. And one day he asked me to write a book about him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, we were exactly like we were doppelgangers of each other and stuff. So for him to say something like that was really big compliment. So I was like, hell yeah, dude. And, what do you want to be? It's like, I want to be a vampire, but not one of those sparkly ones either. You do it right. I said,
yeah.
Oh, okay. So then I didn't think anything else of it. 2 years later, I got a call from my mom telling me that John had been in a car accident and in the night and had died, and that hit hard, really hard. Man. 2014. He was only 32, I think, maybe 33. I'm older than he was back then, which is weird because he was always the one that was older than me, so it's weird to think about. But then I had my nutrition store, Empire Nutrition, for a while, and one day I was just sitting at my store and just popped up on my laptop out of nowhere. I guess this is 3 years later or 4 years later after that happened. I just thought about that promise and stuff and just started writing. And I never thought anyone would ever read it except for me and my friends and stuff. And then whenever I told my friends I was writing a book about John and starring John, they all wanted to be a part of it too. So they all get to choose what they were. So our awesome friend Jonathan Depweg is a werewolf, and then Dustin Valenta is a middle, a gray angel, not fallen, not above, just leave me alone, a libertarian angel, if you will, that has a saloon. Nathaniel Kirby, so I made him Nathaniel Locke. He's the bad guy, and so all my friends and John's friends are in the story, which is really crazy. And I finished it and gave it to my friends and stuff, and my buddy Dustin was like, man, I was going to tell you it was good no matter what, because you're my bro, but it's actually really good. You need to do something with this. So then I reached out to I did a whole bunch of research. reached out to like, I don't know, 100 different agents and publishers and all this other stuff. And I got 2 no's and 98 no answers. So then I was like, well, screw this. I'll just do it myself then. And then, so that's a whole world of its own.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went in and self-published. And not long after, I'd say by book 3, it took me a year to write book 1, 6 months to write book 2, and then 3 months to write book 3, which is like the size of book 1 and 2 combined. So I picked up my pace and got used to it.
Mm.
And then the story really gets crazy on book 3. But then around book 3, whenever that came out, people started taking notice, and my name started getting mentioned in Facebook groups of urban fantasy, because that's what the series is Deadpool is a vampire is what they call it, the billboard of it.
Okay.
And now that I'm working on book 10 right now, and I have I don't know how many I've sold, tens of thousands, 20,000, 30,000, something like that. Yeah, I've sold a bunch of them. Audiobooks, I know I've sold 20,000 because I was looking the other day. So that's really cool.
Isn't that crazy to see,
series.
man? Like to see like where it was like an idea and you turned it into something and it turns into like double digits, you know? Like that's crazy. That's cool. It's nice to see that.
Yeah. Well, considering like I didn't think that anything was going to come of this, and you know, it's just a couple years later, and now I have 4 series, I suppose, because I'm working on a lit RPG book with my author buddy Justin Leslie. But I have a superhero book series. It's going to be a trilogy. I have a time travel thriller. That's going to be a trilogy, and both of those are through big time publishers. One's through Athon, one's through Podium, and then I have a lot. And now the Preternatural Chronicles, which is my main series that I'm known for, is I actually just got the rights back to. So like I'm having to dive into all that stuff again, and that's kind of a big announcement. No one actually knows that happened. So you'd be the first to actually hear it officially.
Do you want me to hold this or just launch this?
Yeah, you can launch it. That's fine.
It'll take a few days.
Once everything's ironed out, like we're just waiting on one thing, and then I was going to make an announcement anyway.
That's exciting. Wow.
Yeah, my publisher just had some stuff that he was working on. I was like, hey, man, can I just have it back? I got some stuff I want to do, and I know you're really busy, and it's kind of hard to do both. And he's like, yeah, man, sure, no problem. So then, yeah, he's a really cool guy. So now I got my series back, and I already got like omnibuses in the work, which is where you put like, you know, usually it's around 3 books into one. So the customer or the reader buys one. Especially the audiobooks, it's going to be like a 30-something hour audiobook, and they spend 1 credit and they get 3 or 4 books. So I got that in the works. Got a whole bunch of stuff, man. But yeah, to answer your question, yeah, it all started like when I made a promise to a best friend, and now, thousands and thousands and thousands of people across the world are helping keeping them alive. Oh, and the sales don't even count pages read, because Amazon has something called KDP, and for like I think it's like $12 a month, people can read as many books as they want for free, and then we get paid per pages read, kind of like Spotify. The artists get paid per minute listened to, kind of thing. It's the same thing.
Dude, that's
pages
awesome.
read. So yeah, I have like a million pages read a month or something, which is crazy.
Have you gone to have you gone or been invited to like any like conventions and stuff like that for what you do and different genres, or like how's that been?
Yeah, I've gone to a handful. I actually went to one in Florida last year. I hope I go back with my buddy Justin, and then we brought Luke Daniels, who is our narrator. Like I found him first, and then Justin reached out to me, and I gave him all this advice, and then I connected him to Luke. And I'm hearing a little bit of feedback every now and then, by the way.
Is it on my end?
Like I can hear myself as if like
because I think I see. I mean, I have the headset, but I see it popping up in the little window, like the microphone's going off. So I've been like muting my mic for some weird reason. So if I wonder if that's what you're hearing.
Yeah, I'm hearing myself.
Well, I'm gonna try my best to freaking mute this when I'm not talking. So, I don't know. I don't know. Who knows? My editor Taylor will figure it out in 2 seconds and tell me. So.
Yeah, Taylor, you're doing good. So, all right, back to it. Yeah, I've done conventions, sell a whole bunch of books there because people like to meet the author and buy signed books. And then I sell signed books on my website too. I'd say actually I sell more signed books than Amazon sells paperbacks, but then again, most people who read it just do Kindle or audiobook, which is what I personally do.
So I'm gonna get into a couple questions here. Okay, I'll just go with the first one. This is the question that I had for you. What is the most difficult part of your writing process?
So I tell people the most difficult part about being a writer is writing. And then once you've actually written your first book, it changes to the easiest part about being a writer is writing. The most difficult part, man, is the ads and all the stuff you have to do with that, all the aggregate. You have to have the right keywords. You have to hire the right editor. I've gone through a bunch of editors until I actually did something called the editor games, where I went through like 3 different rounds of edits. Because when I first published book 1, Amazon lets you publish whatever you want. It had like over 200 mistakes in it. And actually, what's funny is I had 10 copies of those with the original cover and everything, and because they're limited edition, with all the mistakes and everything, like I put them up for like 100 and something bucks, $100 or 150, I can't remember, and they were gone in 2 days. So people like the limited edition, collector's edition kind of stuff. But I had all these editors, and then at one point I wrote a novella, which is book 0.5 called Deliverance, which people can get for free if they go to my website, hunterblain.com, and sign up for my newsletter that I really never do anything with, but they can download Deliverance for free. But I wrote Deliverance and I gave it to 5 editors, and I said, you're in the editor games. I want all of you to edit it. I'm going to pay your full fee. And then whoever does the best job will get to do the rest of the series. And it came down to one named Fabiola, and she just knocked it out of the park, and she helps me catch stuff that I should have caught, I should have known. It's crazy. She's an amazing editor. So you have to do an editor, you have to book cover. Despite what they say, people do judge a book by its cover. So you have to have an engaging cover, and those aren't cheap. Those can be as cheap as $80 all the way up to like $1,500, just depending on how professional you go. And my buddy Justin actually had a photo shoot with a model and stuff, or he paid someone to do it, and then gave him all these different ideas, and they did an actual photo shoot that no one else can use those images except for him. So he paid extra for that, of course. There's no stock images. And then there's just so much to pay for, man. It's absolutely bonkers. So the easiest part about being a writer, now that I've written books, is actually just writing, and the hardest part is everything else behind the scenes. There's so much to it.
So have you had a lot of like sleepless nights and waking up thinking of ideas and jotting things down, or how to make things better, of course, and just always trying to be a perfectionist in that sense of what makes sense for when you do write a book?
So I'm definitely not a perfectionist, which is good, because you have to know when to put the brush down. There's too many people out there, too many aspiring artists who have the disease where they can never put the brush down. It's never done. It's never perfect. It never will be, and it will be a regret later on, but that's neither here nor there. I always say done is better than perfect. So I'm definitely not a perfectionist. Now, I have some really clever ideas and the things I come up with, and then I go through it a few times. My editor goes through it. Then I have some beta readers that go through it and some ARC readers that go through it. And then they'll give me any feedback if something's not clear or if something was a near miss. But yeah, and then for ideas, I actually have a whole list of intentionally making it where you can't see it. I have a whole list of story ideas that if I'm out and about, I'm just like, oh, that'd be cool, and I just write it down. So, and then if I think of something for any of the books that I'm currently working on, it just hits, and then I don't forget it, which is crazy. Like the thing that I knew was missing from the story, I'll be laying in bed watching Survivor with the wife, because we just kind of got into that, and my brain would be like, oh, this is the answer, and I'd be like, oh, cool. So the next day when I sit at my computer, I'll be like, okay, then I'll go in and polish it up and fix it. So the story writing's no problem at all. It's just nothing to it but to do it.
Right. Yeah. So what is what are your plans going forward with all the writing and coming up with, you know, different series, and like, are you just going to continue to just go down this path and just, you know, just write and do the best you can, come up with different series? And I know you said you're working on another one. What was that one called? It starts with an L, I think.
It's a lit RPG book.
That one. So, can you speak on that at all, or is that something that is behind? Okay, so how is that going with you? What's the thought process behind that, and where can it end up?
Yeah. So to answer the question, I have 4 books left in John's series because I have 13 planned, and I knew it was going to be 13 when I first started. So the story is racing toward its conclusion, and the fans are really waiting patiently for me to get the next one out. And yeah, so I have that planned. It's going to be crazy. And then for the lit RPG is like the movie Ready Player One. You know, when it has real world aspects to it, but whenever he puts on the headset, he's in a game world with game mechanics. So that's what lit RPG is. Tron was probably the first lit RPG back in the day. But that's what me and Justin are working on. We're almost done with it. I'm actually going, I did a lot of extra chapters today and fleshed things out. He's doing the real world stuff. I'm doing the game world stuff. So we're kind of writing at the same time. And yeah, that one's a lot of fun because I'm a huge nerd. You know, I used to play World of Warcraft. I was playing Diablo 4 before we started this. So
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't played those games? Iconic.
I'm no stranger to games, so I definitely use my vast knowledge to make it relatable. We're still waiting to hear something on that one. We have it out to a publisher, and we're going to see if they want to pick it up. If they don't want to pick it up, instead of like trying to shop it around, we'll probably just do it ourselves because we've done it before. All of Justin's books, except for he has a new series coming out with Podium, but all of his are self-published. I've been self-published, so we'll probably just do it ourselves just to get it done. And then I have 2 books that are done that don't come out until one comes out in September, and that's the second one in the Chronos Paradox, which is my time traveler thriller. And then the other one is the superhero one, the Soul Saga. So the Soul Saga is like
some pictures like that. I did see some of those.
Well, Soul did really good. I got up to number 20 at one point on all of Audible, up there with like J.K. Rowling and Stephen King, and like Lord of the Rings was up there, and I was like, holy crap! So, like that was really humbling.
Yeah, I got
people seem to like it.
Lord of the Rings right here. This is only. I mean, I don't know if I forgot when I got this tattoo, but it's my family crest in the Tangwar, the language off Lord of the Rings. So that I felt it was like super unique. I've never seen anybody with it, and I've always been a fan of Lord of the Rings. Everyone's like, "Oh, dude, Star Wars," but for me, it was always Lord of the Rings. And then I was like, man, I want to do something unique, like with the language, because it just looks so cool. And believe it or not, a lot of people, they see it and they automatically think it's like Arabic, but you know, it's what gives it away. It's just the really like drastic long lines off of it. But yeah, it's my family crest in that Tangwar language, which is really cool. But I mean, so do you constantly work with other people all the time to come up with these ideas, or is just all of this just off the top of your head?
No, except for with the lit RPG book, which is called Into the Alphaverse. Jess and I we were sitting at the convention in Florida, and we were just talking about how lit RPG is blown up and how big it is, and it's like the #1 selling genre right now. Because there's always ebbs and flows for genres, and right now that's what's really big. And I was like, I bet we could do that. I mean, I'm a huge gamer nerd, like, and then he was somewhat of a nerd too, but he was also in the military. I think it was Army Special Forces or something along those lines. He was definitely out at the big beach back in the day as an operator, and so he was working on the real life side with like the detective story and the structure, all that, and then I was working on the game side. And we hashed it out in like a couple of hours. We're like, oh, this would actually be a really badass story. And then we wrote almost all of it in like a month. But then I had to pause and work on the time traveler book and the superhero book because I have contracts and deadlines and stuff. So Justin was cool enough to wait till I got those satisfied. And then like earlier today, like I said, I was working on the lit RPG again. So that one, I hope that comes out later this year, but it also depends on if we get it published by someone or not. You know, they have timelines and whatnot.
I have a question for you now. Not to put you on spot during the podcast, because I was going to wait until after, but I mean, I feel like if I don't ask now, I'm going to forget and it's going to bother me. So my brother-in-law right here, he was a Marine. He was deployed twice to Ramadi over in Iraq, which is really, really bad. It was like one of like the shitholes of all the conflicts, if you'd say. And I think he was also over in Fallujah. Now, he is a 2-time Purple Heart recipient, and then there's a book over here that I have that is a very very famous Marine battalion book that was wrote about his unit, but he personally denied being in the book for some personal reasons. And so now I'm like, man, because he was on episode 2 in my on my YouTube, and then he's coming back on to talk more. And so it just like a light bulb came into my head. If that is something that, if you guys like link up, if you guys could create a story about that, but I don't know if it's like in the wheelhouse for you guys or the, you know, what you guys write about, but like, I think that would be a very interesting story from, you know, he's been blown up twice, freaking shot at. I mean, he's done the whole nine. Raiding villages and towns and going through homes with, you know, all sorts of stuff. That would be kind of cool if you guys could, or if I link you guys up, he's somehow able to tell his story or something like that. I don't know. I was just thinking about it, so had to get it off my brain.
That'd be more for like Justin, because he was in the military as well. Like that's not my bailiwick, so I wouldn't do it here at Justice.
That would be okay.
Plus, well, honestly, with 4 different series, I am backlogged.
Oh, I didn't say, dude. You're completely got your hands full.
After I finish these contracts, I'm not going to take anything else until I finish my main series, just because I know the ending and it's going to be insane, and people are going to be so surprised, and yeah, so I have to make that happen. Like then I'm just calling it now. My name will absolutely blow up once I finish John's main series, just because that ending is going to be perfect the way I like it, and I know John will like it, but I don't know how many other people will. So we'll have to see if I'm going to go George R. R. Martin or not.
Well, I need to get some of your books, man, because I've said this before. My wife she loves to read and stuff like that, and I like the idea of reading, and I do have a couple of books of some friends, and but I start it and then I just get like caught up in other things and I just forget to do it. But because you're like a really good friend, I'm like, man, I gotta get his book or check it out and at least, you know, show some love, because I have nothing else but time coming up here literally in like a week or two. So
I would recommend audiobooks. Like
okay,
the guy who does my books, Luke Daniels, like I said, he's the Audible Hall of Fame narrator for a reason. That dude is so engaging. He does, you know, all the inflections, the men's voices, the women's voices, like he does it all. The accents, he's absolutely insane and so entertaining and engaging. So I'm the same way. I can't really read regular books just because it took me a year to read It by Stephen King. Now that is a chunker of a book, you know, 1,100 pages.
Yeah.
But I was actually trying to read it, and it took me a year. Like some people can read it in a couple days. You know, I'll put out a book that's 100,000 words, and people will finish it in a day. And I'm like, how the hell? So I do audiobooks. That's the only way I can really consume books. I don't know. I read really, really, really slow.
I'm the same way, man. And then plus, you know, I guess with the audiobooks, when you're driving all the time, just put it on in the background, and probably a little bit easier to listen to it that way too. Because I know I helped my wife finish a book based off of the audio. Let's see here. So let's go to another question. See if you can answer this one. This is what somebody else had. What difference do you see between a writer and an author?
None.
Super easy. All right, next question. I'm just kidding.
Maybe I guess if you wanted to break it down, I call myself a writer and author interchangeable. But like a writer maybe could do like a book of. I'm hearing the feedback. There you go. Could do like uh, shows, like TV shows or something. That could be a writer, because an author, you wouldn't say someone who wrote a Friends episode is an author, just because of that. Now, chances are that maybe they've written a book, but a writer does things like that. And then an author focuses on novels and whatnot. So I guess that could technically be the difference.
Okay, let's do. Gosh, out of these 10 questions, let's see. What to you are the most important elements of good writing?
Okay, there's a bunch, man. I guess the most important is make the reader feel something. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as they feel something. And then there's also something called the promise, the progress, and the payoff, which is every single story really has to have that. If you don't have that, you're not going to have happy readers. The perfect example is the new Star Wars. Like the Force Awakens, I thought, I mean, it had some things that I didn't like, but for the most part, it was really good. And then Ryan Johnson comes in, and all the promises that what's his name, J.J. Abrams, because we're going to call him Jar Jar Abrams if it sucked. So J.J. Abrams, all the promise that he came out with, and the progress we had towards that were completely thrown away by Ryan Johnson because he wanted to do his own thing, and they don't understand. That's why people hated the new Star Wars. There's a whole bunch of other reasons, but deep down psychologically, the readers / watchers did not get the payoff. If you don't have a payoff at the end of your story, it's going to be the person enjoying it is not going to walk away with a happy feeling. They're going to feel um, like something's missing. Like in the new It movie, well, I say new, I guess it's been several years now, but in the part 2, at the very beginning, when the Hicks attack the gay guy and like throw him into the water, and then it like picks him up and eats him and all that stuff, there was no satisfaction with the bad guys, the Hicks, getting their comeuppance, and that's missing in that movie. Had they been able to close that off, it would have been like, oh, okay, good, the bad guy got what was coming to them, kind of thing.
Got it.
Just like in the new Star Wars movies, all the promise that was made, who Rey's parents were, she was gonna learn the Force and was gonna take time, just like Luke, and there's something between her and Kylo. There's all these things, right? And then Ryan was like, nope, we're doing my thing, and the promise we were made was gone, and that's why we hated the new Star Wars. Whether or not anyone can articulate that, is they can make all the other arguments, but that's what it boils down to. So if you're going to write a story, no matter what it is, you have to have a promise, which is usually the prologue, the progress. So you watch the character inch toward their goal, and there's always setbacks. But they keep pushing towards their goal. And then the payoff. It could be not satisfactory. The main character could die. He could do this, he could do that. But as long as there is a payoff connected to what the promise was, you have a good story that the reader will like. That's why actually there's horror stories told from like the point of view of a rapist or a murderer or torturer. There's all these genres, and people like it because there's the progress, the promise, progress, and payoff. And
Right.
It's the same thing with romance novels. Romance novels have it unpacked, right? With that whole system. So I think that's the most important element in writing, is that right there. All movies can really be broken down into that. All movies and books.
So from earlier, I'm sure you touched base on it. Kind of slipped my memory, but how long have you been writing for in general? Even like, did you write at all before you started? After your friend unfortunately passed away, like, did you write before that, or was it strictly like right after that when it came to you that one day?
No, I mean, I'd written like short stories when the bug like bit me kind of thing. I would just write something short, and it wasn't even like a full story or anything, where I'd come up with the ideas and stuff and write them down and whatnot. I think I was destined to be a writer, but it kind of took that major impacting moment in my life to form the catalyst. And I make the joke that whenever I die, like John will be waiting for me, going like, "So you got famous off me dying, huh?"
Yeah, it's gonna be there.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's actually him. Wearing a Freddy
Man, I
Krueger
wonder
glove.
if I have seen him in the supplement shop.
You did, because we lived in Arlington.
Okay, I was gonna say, man, like earlier when we were talking offline, like that image didn't come to my head, but like now that I see that with the baseball cap, because he wore the cap, he was always wearing a baseball cap. So another question somebody asked was, what is the core message or theme in your books that you like to get across?
Consequences and do what must be done. So all of my books kind of have that theme. There's always realistic consequences to actions. Doesn't matter how noble your intentions are. I like to say that you're free to make whatever decision you want in the entire universe. It's the consequences that you can't avoid. So, you could go right now. You could go out and stab someone in the street, and you have free will to do that if that's what you want to do. But you cannot avoid the consequences of what's going to happen because of that. So, and that's real life. In the books, it's the same thing. Like my hero protagonist, John, tries his best to stay out of um, the prophecy, and he tries his best to do good. And he tries his best to all these things, but um, the road is paved with good intentions, kind of thing. It doesn't work out the way he wants, and there's things that he does that feel. I think my readers say like my characters feel very very real because he does stupid things that someone would do out of anger or sadness or desperation, that kind of thing, as he's trying to prevent the apocalypse. Basically, is what the theme of the story is. Is
That's good because it
he's
pulls
working
them
with the
in.
holy priest.
People can like relate to that, So it's like that's the catching part of it, which is really cool. So what are this is kind of off the questions right now, but what is like the next stepping stones for you, if you will, or like timeline in the next like 2 months or 6 months or 12 months? Like what's your timeline? Like what do you have coming up to get
this
done?
year I think I've released more books than ever before, because there was two. Well, I guess one was November, but then I have two more in the works, and then I'm working on two as we speak. And number 10 of John's book is going to be out later this year, no matter what. I don't care if I die trying. I'm going to get number 10 out. Because I actually I was listening to book 9 not long ago as I was doing a whole bunch of yard work. It's a like 13-hour audiobook, and I listened to it in like 2 settings because I was doing so much work. But at the very end of it, Luke Daniels says, "And John will return with book 10 in 2022." I was like, "Why did I do that?" So I'm never, ever, ever gonna do that again. And I get people reaching out to me because I did the same thing in the ebook too. Like, people will be like, "Hey, I can't seem to find it." I'm like, "Because it's not written. It's my fault." So it's because I had all these different contracts come to me, and they always pay more than your first contract because you're established and stuff, right? So I I had to get those done, and I had these stories sitting in the back of my brain, and it was good to take a break from John's books anyway, just for a minute, and kind of spread my wings and hone my skills, if you will.
Yeah, that's a lot for sure.
How would you to answer your question is I have 2 books coming out, the second superhero and the second time traveler, and then I have the lit RPG, and those are already done. They're already edited. They're done. We're just waiting for both of them to be recorded. And then the time traveler one comes out September, and then the superhero one is recorded in August. So I don't know when that one comes out. Usually people do like a 60-day pre-order thing, so we'll find out on that one. So I imagine it'll come out shortly after the time traveler one. And then I'm working on the lit RPG now. I hope to be done shortly. And then I'm immediately, nothing else is going to stop me. I'm going to finish book 10 of John's book because I was at 40,000 words. So about 40% of book number 10 when I got these contracts and stuff. And I was like, well, crap. So I just kind of dropped everything and started working on those. And people have been waiting a year and a half for January of last year. Now, I mean, I've had several books come out since then, but it's just not the main series. And I completely understand why people are kind of anxious for me to finish John's stories because it is ramping up to the final 4 books, which is getting absolutely bonkers. And they want to know what happens. But at the same time, I do release books faster than most traditionally published authors. So, you know, Jim Butcher, for example, I love that guy. He's my favorite author. But, you know, he's like 5 years in between books or something like that. Worth the wait. Like his books are amazing. The Dresden Files. But he has, I used to be mad at him because he worked on these other books that weren't the Dresden Files, which is what got me into urban fantasy in the first place. And then I went and did it myself. And now that I'm on this end, I understand why he did it, you know, and I'm like, oh crap, now I'm there. But I actually tell people straight up, like I'm honest with all my fans. I'm like, look, man, these people are paying a lot more. There's advances and I got bills to pay and, you know, all this other stuff. And they're helping keep me, you know, full-time author. So just bear with me.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, urban fantasy, the difference between urban fantasy and fantasy. So my main series is urban fantasy. Is urban fantasy is real. So what that means is like when Harry Potter's in the castle and there's no electronics, there's no cell phones, there's no TVs. It's all just like wands and dragons and stuff. That's fantasy. But then whenever he goes to London, and then like the cars are magic and the houses are magic, and he can do magic out in the streets among the muggles and all that stuff. That's urban fantasy. So my series is realistic fantasy, is what urban fantasy means. I don't know why they called it urban.
That definitely makes sense, and it's a very easy to understand the way you broke that down because I didn't know, but now I do know because I've heard it before. So do you ever have like aspirations of possibly turning this stuff into like a movie?
Of course, I'd rather it be a series.
Okay.
And I don't hold my breath though, especially in today's climate. It doesn't help that my main character is a straight white guy, so you know we'll have to see how things settle in the future because it is my best friend. So I'm not changing the melanin in his skin. I'm not changing his sexual preference. I'm not doing any of these things just to be on a checklist to get a payday with any of those companies that do that.
Don't do it.
Now, if it was like for something else, I'd be like, how did you know? Like this whole time that's actually how he was. Whatever you said that you wanted to be, he was that the whole time. Where can I cash this? But for John, like there's absolutely no way in hell I'm changing anything about my best bromigo.
Yeah, and nobody else. I mean, I'm sure if you would hear it, it'd come from your fans, and nobody cares about that stuff. I'm sure, they just are there to support you. You're good, being best-selling author. They're there for your books. They're not there for this, not to go down the political side, but this other kind of woke agenda, if you will. Like people truly don't care about that, and especially not to come at an author and to try to have him change, It's
actually happened. I've talked to some authors who were offered TV deals if they made some of those changes, and they were like, "What does it matter? Like, what does it matter who a vampire sleeps with or whatever? Like that doesn't detract. This is about the apocalypse. This is about heaven and hell and the final battle and all of creation's at stake and all, angels and demons. Like, what does it matter? That kind of thing."
Selling your soul to the freaking devil, man. Here we go. This is gonna touch base on about your friend. Are there therapeutic benefits to modeling a character after someone you know?
It is cathartic, but not in the way that they're probably referencing. It's more that people around the world. I mean, like the Philippines. I have a lot of fans in the UK, a couple in Australia, Mexico. Just literally just all over the world are thinking about my best friend John Cook. He's alive because those people are. What I like to say is they're keeping him alive in the theater of their mind. So, and I wrote him almost exactly like he was. Now, there's some embellishments, like because it is Deadpool as a vampire, so it has that humor aspect to it. Like sometimes he'll scream, and I'll say he screams like a teapot or something like that, just because it's really funny to see a burly vampire, like go, ah, that kind of thing. My series is really funny, is what the fans tell me. And they're right; they're absolutely right. It's funny. But it's almost exactly like what John was, though, like who he was and how he would talk and things. So it is cathartic. It is also easy. Like for all my friends, like I said, are basically in the series. One actually came today and bought book 8. Taylor is his name, and he's in the books as well, I don't want to tell you because it kind of ruins it, but he wants to know what happens to him. And so I actually wrote in there, "Hope you're okay, teehee," and then I signed it. So he's like, I don't like that you said that, but it makes it real easy to describe the characters and some of their mannerisms. Like at the gym that my supplement store was in, there were these twins, short, like 5'4", I think.
I remember the bodybuilder dudes, right?
Yes,
I remember those guys. Yep.
They are characters, and I mean, like, they're not in like a old dad, wearing Velcro sandals with socks kind of thing. I'm talking like they're characters as the people. Like they're short, but they're as wide as they are tall, and they're identical twins. I couldn't distinguish them at first, and then after I got to know them, it was impossible to not tell who they were because Dawson was more outgoing. He was more of extroverted, and he also talked at the front of his mouth. And then Joey kind of was a little slower, more calm and subdued. Kind of
I remember
back of his throat. And Dawson's actually reading the books right now. He's in I think he's in Iraq or he's in Afghanistan as I think he's a medic, helping out people over there. Joey's now a firefighter in Cleburne, I think, or Joshua, one of those areas. But it's just funny, like I asked them if they want to be in the books. They didn't know John, but they were just so perfect as characters. Like if I told you there's identical twins that were super short but ultra buff, and one was extroverted and one was introverted, and they even talked different and they even walked different, and their energy was different. Like you would think like I completely made that up, but man, they were made to be in books. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, that's a perfect combo, like yin and yang right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's see what else we got here on a couple of these questions. Okay, here we go. This is if this happens to you, how do you process and deal with negative book reviews if you get them?
That's a damn good question.
Yeah, you're welcome. That was all me right here.
It was a really good question. I have thick ass skin. Like really thick. Like if someone told me they don't like me, I'd just be like, okay, cool, whatever, and I would sleep just fine at night. Like I don't need anyone's approval on this planet, except for my wife. Like I guess I'm lucky that both my parents, are really proud of me and stuff, and my dad's reading my books, and my mom tries to, but it's not her thing, the styling. But I don't care what anyone thinks, at all. And you do get negative reviews, and you also have to remember that you can't make everyone happy. People gave Game of Thrones, except for the last season, we're not going to talk about that because once again the payoff was not there because the progress and the promises that were made to us were not delivered. That's why we hated Game of Thrones. I don't know if you know that.
I hated that ending, dude. God,
we all did because they built up the whole thing. What was Arya supposed to do? What was Bran's whole thing? Like this, all these storylines, and what was with the prophecy of Cersei getting killed by her brother?
Yeah, dude, that was
it was
wrecked my
garbage.
brain when I saw it. It was just like I mean, like, so I watched it with my wife. So like, she watched it, and it was the season 8 or season 7, right? It was like the last one, 8. So
8.
she watched it up until like season like 6 or 7, and then I binge watched it to catch up to where she was at. So she rewatched it all with me, and then towards the end when that happened, dude, I wanted to just do you know who the comedian Theo Von is?
Yeah.
When he said he wanted to kick a fat kid at Kmart, dude, that was me. Like, I was so upset, dude. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I wanted to snap the table, dude, and I know exactly what you mean. So,
well, now you're aware of why, and that's because they made the promise. We had progress for everything, all the storylines. We had progress, which is important, and we had almost zero payoff. Like, are you kidding me? With Khaleesi, oh, that you did a twist, all right, but you did a twist that gave us no payoff for the progress we made with the promise that was made. So, screw you two. You know who you are, DB Wise, and I forget the other guy's name.
Get him, dude. I was so upset.
Now, at the same time, George R. R. Martin should have finished the series and give them something to work on and whatever. So I get it, but at the same time, come on. But anyway, what was it? Oh, so negative reviews. Yeah, I get them, and you can't make everyone happy. It doesn't matter how good the story is. Doesn't matter, pick your favorite movie of all time. There's someone who hates it, and for any aspiring writer or author, because there's a slight difference, I guess, you have to ask yourself, if you saw someone who gave you a 1 star and then tore you apart and said it was absolute garbage and it made no sense and this and that and all this other thing, like, if that would really bother you, save yourself some time and don't do it. Or either that, make damn sure you never look. But everyone looks. You're always going to look. And I read the reviews. Now, most of mine are good. I have like over 5,000, and it's like 4.4, 4.5 or something like that, which is basically anything above a 3 is good. Anything above a 4 is supposed to be like out of this world. So on Goodreads, which now Amazon incorporates into their reviews, because I think Amazon bought Goodreads, I have a very high rating in all my books for especially the main series, and that's really awesome. And I focus more on, I have 5,000 people who love it, and then I might have 50 people maybe who were like, this is garbage, I hate it, whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's just like your opinion, man.
True, and opinions are like buttholes. Everybody has one.
Mm-hmm. And some people want to show it to you for some reason.
Yeah, $14.99 a month. So, I think I've met your wife before at your guys' rental property that one time you're showing it to me. So what does your wife think about you doing this, like career path and the writing books and stuff like that? Does she ever want to like be in a book? Do you ever want to put her in a book, or does she completely support it, but just like you're shaking your head right now, she wants to stay away from it from herself?
She is she is extremely introverted. Yeah, I've been with her like 16 years at this point, something like that, which is like more than about half my life. And I mean, she's proud of me and she sees the success, but she's also very business minded. And, we have goals and aspirations that we're working for and whatnot as a team. So, I mean, yeah, she's proud, but she doesn't need to be in a book. It doesn't pique her interest at all. And yeah, she's very grounded and down to earth and business minded. Yeah.
It's we have our goals and aspirations too, like my wife and I were talking about earlier today, and with what she has going on with her job and where she's at right now, and when she comes back, and with me getting medically retired, we're like trying to pick a state that we can buy land and a house, and we're looking at a few different things, but then also getting the kids set up and then doing like rental properties for ourselves, and pretty much to where we have liquid assets and pay for everything for us, so we can just go and travel and take the kids with us and go do whatever we want. So I definitely understand that. And
hit me up if you need advice on the real stuff. I think we have like 14 or something right now.
Yeah, because I would like to. So I had a gentleman. His name is Blain. Kawaoka, I believe it's how you pronounce it. He was episode 10 for me, and he does.
Is that German?
No, he lives. I think he lives in Hawaii, from what he told me, and but he has like 10,000 units, like insane.
One day.
And he just told me, he was an engineer one day, or not one day, sorry. He was an engineer, I think, for like 14 years or something like that. But this is where I was saying one day he was like, man, I'm tired of working for the big guy. And he started doing his own thing. And then before we went live on here, I know you told me you had the rental properties. I'm like, dang, because I remember when you just had the one. And so, my wife and I, with us, we have the VA loans that can help, which is is very strong buying power. So we want to get into buying rental properties and possibly buy rental properties in red states, not blue states, for obvious reasons. But that's off the subject. That's a rabbit hole, if you would say. So what is your end goal, brother? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to write for the next 5-10 years? Are you trying to retire in 10 years? Are you trying to get it to where you retire your wife or something? In that way, it's just solely off of, I guess your income, but you said she's business minded. So is that something she would even look forward to? Or does she want to kind of, how's that?
I don't think she's ever going to stop. I mean, even if I did retire, I would still write, just because it is a lot of fun. And, my private Facebook group, like, there's over 1,000 members, and you have to like answer questions to get into it. And if you don't answer, or you don't answer right, and the questions are just like, who's your favorite character and things like that, just to prove that they're real. And we don't let other people invite their friends in. We have a rule against that. So like, I have over 1,000 members in my private face group of real people, not, your aunt invited you to this group and you're like, I guess what is this? That kind of thing. So, they're all my friends, basically, all those people. They're really cool. And I talk to several of them all the time. I play games with them, like Diablo 4 or whatever. And I'll write forever, just because it's fun. I've gotten really good at it, and the way that I do it, there's a lot to writing. Just like working out, when you first start, there's all those mind muscle connections that you do not have. And then you think you're right for benching as heavy as you can, even though you've only been working out for 6 months, and not doing, you don't care about form and, all that, or deadlifting with, shaking and trying to get the bar. You just care about getting the bar up, right? So after a while, you learn to do the proper form. You learn the mind muscle connection. You learn what exercises work for you. So it's the same thing with writing. All these things that I've learned makes it easy to write. My biggest problem right now is I have too many contracts, which is kind of funny and good problem to have. And that does put pressure. But I mean, I've been a regional manager or district manager for big ass corporations for most of my life. So pressure is nothing new. I was a district manager at Sears. I had the #1 team in the entire company. And fuck Sears, and they they deserve to go down. I know why they went down too, but yeah, that was a lot of pressure, a lot of stress. But I didn't bring that down to my people. All those things. I'm good at handling that kind of stuff, is what I'm getting at. So yeah, I'm just gonna keep doing it, because 1, it's fun, and 2, I'm good at it, and 3, I have a whole bunch of friends who support me. All those fans and stuff. So. They devour everything I put out, so I'll keep doing it.
So is it like where in the fitness industry, how when we look at food, this is obviously not a piece of food. This is my son's monster truck. But when you look at it, you're like, oh, I already know how many carbs, fats, and protein is in here. So when you like read another book or like a movie, like, your brain just fires off with ideas and what you could do better, and like why they did this in that movie or the book. And is that how that works for you, like your brain?
Neil Gaiman said it, that once you learn, or was it? Yeah, I think it was Neil Gaiman. It could have been George R.R. Martin, but I'm pretty sure it's Neil Gaiman. Once you learn how it's done, all the magic is gone. And my wife and I were watching the new season of Black Mirror the other day, and it was on. There was something that happened on the space one, that the camera zoomed in on it for a second, and then they did it again, and like a couple minutes later, is like, oh, this is what's going to happen. And she's like, how do you know that? I'm like, Chekhov's gun. Chekhov's gun is a rule that in a play, if there's a gun on the wall, like hanging on the wall, it's going to be shot. Like that's a rule kind of thing. It's a trope, really, but a lot of movies and TV shows and books will give you Chekhov's gun, and they'll try to make it subtle, and then later on you're like, oh, that's why they did it. But for a writer, uh, now that I know how it's done, I'm like, well, I know how this ends, that kind of thing. So it doesn't really ruin it. It just, whenever there's really good writing, like Interstellar, for example, Jesus, like that's a perfect movie right there. Christopher Nolan is a god, lowercase g, and just he just not he can do no wrong. I can't wait to see Oppenheimer coming out just because of how good of a writer he is. He does things, and even though there's rules and all this stuff, he'll bend them. He'll create new rules. He'll do whatever the hell he wants, and he'll still come out with like the most amazing story that no one saw coming, and so good. But yeah, to answer your question, you just know how things happen on TV shows and movies and stuff, and I just go, oh, this is going to happen, and then I just watch. Not a big deal.
So with your experience, that you've had so far and that you've accomplished, I'm sure there's been several points where somebody's wanted to write a book at one point, but they just kind of don't know how to start. So what is like some tips and, feedback for those people that are just, they don't know how to put the pen to paper per se, to get it going? Like, what would you kind of give them some advice for?
Same thing that you would tell someone just trying to start working out for the first time. There's nothing to it but to do it. Just go to the gym. You'll figure it out. Just write. And if you can't do that one thing, you're not going to make it. And that's 99% of people. Everyone has the amazing story, but they don't sit down and make the time. And, there's a lot of talented people I know that just don't do it. And that's fine. I had a very good reason for starting to write. So not everyone has that catalyst, if you will. But that's my brutal advice. Is if you want to write. If you want to go to the gym, go to the gym, and then YouTube videos. I watched hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of YouTube videos of different artists that I really respected. Same thing whenever I first started working out. I'd watch a lot of Jay Cutler videos or Ronnie Coleman. Why do they do it this way? Why do they do it that way? That kind of thing. Yeah. Then I would go to the gym and I would do it myself. So it's the same thing. You have to be thirsty to learn, and then willing to try that, implement it.
So can people catch your books like in a Barnes and Noble, or is it just all online in Amazon, or like where can people find your books? Now, I'm going to put the links in the description anyways for you guys that are going to ask questions to hopefully, get that for you. But just so you can kind of hear it from the horse's mouth, where can everybody find your stuff?
My time travel series is available on barnesandnoble.com. But all my stuff is on Amazon. Amazon's the big boys. You can't compete with Amazon. Same thing with the fitness industry, right? The supplement industry.
Right.
You can't compete with Amazon. So everything's on Amazon. I personally prefer Audible for any of my books that I read, for not only because I read slow, but because, man, if you get a good narrator, holy crap, like it brings the story to life for you. Conversely, a terrible narrator can also just make it really boring. I tried listening to Game of Thrones, but I guess this is whenever it's first taken off. So they had like this ancient dude trying to read, and he'd be like, and then Cersei was all like, fuck you, bitch. And then, killed everyone. I would
fall asleep.
I was like, I can't do this. So I need a narrator who's really into it. But yeah, Amazon for sure. You go to hunterblain.com. Blain, and you can download Deliverance for free. Like halfway down on the main screen, you can sign up for my newsletter that I really never do anything with, and you can download book 0.5 for free. It's only, I think it's like 12,000 words, so it's really short. It's a 45-minute book on Audible, It's about to be in the omnibus. It's going to be the first thing you listen to, but it tells how John the vampire meets up with Father Thomas Philseep, who's a priest, and how they start working together to use his powers for the good guys. And then we discover like the apocalypse is going to come when the last vampire walks the earth and stuff. So if you read book 0.5, which is like, it's like this thick, that's what she said, and you like it, then you can read the rest of the series, and you know you're going to like my silly humor and stuff and where the story is. But if you read it and you're like, it's not really for me, you know, it was free and you didn't miss anything, so no big deal, you move on to something else. So yeah, Amazon, type in Hunter Blain. I go by my real name. You find me on Facebook, Hunter Blain Author, and then my website, hunterblain.com, and yeah, things like that.
Hey man, it's too easy. Yeah, so I'm gonna make sure I have all that stuff in you. So when we end here, I'm gonna make sure I grab all that stuff, and I'm gonna save the links. That way, my editor has it, and we can throw it in there, and I'll put it in the bio, and so that way people can check it out and get a further audience. Because my podcast, fortunately, right now, as of recently, is in I think 12 or 13 countries. People are tuning in and listening to it from, which is really cool. Of course, the megalodon, if you will, it's my son's favorite monster truck, just came to my head, is about, I want to say, like 90% plus in the US, and then the rest of the 10% is dispersed out. I think like the most recent one that got on, just kind of wild, is Kuwait. But yeah, it's like 12 or 13 countries that people really tune into, and people are pretty engaging, so it'll be nice. And then I feel like there's a lot of readers out there too, so I think this will be really informative for them to kind of sit down with, you know, a best-selling author and learn your story from start until current, and where you're going, what you have planned, where they can reach out to you, check out your books, the Audible, the whole nine. It's really cool. You know, I want to thank you again, bro, for coming on. I mean, I talked to you off and on before. I didn't really do this podcast until I was like, oh, well, since I'm getting out of the military, I want to do something on the side for fun. And, you know, I like to talk to people. So I was like, man, I think podcasts would be really cool. And then I just, every time I see the thing on Blizzard, I always see you on, dude. I'm like, man, I gotta get Hunter on, tell his story, get his books out there in the whole nine. So, for everybody watching, I'm going to put his stuff, like I said, you know, for the third, fourth time, I put everything in the bio once this gets edited. Should, you know, be out in probably a few days or so. Give you guys a heads up, and I'll give you the link, of course, Hunter, so you can post it to your group so they can kind of check it out as well. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. If you guys can, turn the notifications on. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So again, Hunter, thank you for coming on, brother. And this was fun for me to catch up with you and kind of get the face to face.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's awesome. I like doing this.
Yep. Heck yeah, man. I appreciate it. All right, guys. And then tune in. Hopefully a next episode is either going to be yours truly, where I might do like a solo video or podcast, if you will, to talk about what's going on with the military, and or I might have Kevin back on to do like a part 2 about his story. All right. Thank you.